mankind hesitated to eradicate the creatures that stand in the path of his conquest. If we find ritual extirpation, undesirable odors of another, the rest must be destroyed. Is it possible that our dark past? Watch them and pray.
Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, government agents, all my little pog champs, and anybody who might be listening. This is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. I am your host, Tasker, and we have, as usual, Nick.
Oh, can I be a little pog champ, please?
I kind of figured something like that was going to happen because PogChamp is dead.
Yeah, but I'm alive. I can be your new pog champ. I could be a player of the game champ for anybody out there. Oh, just go ahead and hug me and tell me I'm your little pog champ, okay?
How much you want to bet there have been people out there who hired hookers and ordered them to say something like that?
Nowadays, I bet you a lot of them have. I mean, think about all these Gen Zers out there thinking that they actually should be called somebody's little pog champ.
Yeah, it's a weird future we live in, and it feels like kind of just like nothing's really consistent anymore. It feels like everything, culture just changes like on the weekly now.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Speaking of autism, right?
Great.
Before this recording, when we were kind of waiting to hop on, I was looking for my phone. Couldn't find my phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looked for it for 5 minutes until I realized that I was watching YouTube on it in front of me.
That's like when you back in like public school when like you'd have your pencil and you put it on your ear because you're like, oh, now I can do other shit with my hands, and then you forget the pencil's there and you start freaking out like, where's my pencil? And like nobody tells you.
Yeah, I felt humiliated. I felt like I was a little bit, loose in the brain.
Yeah,
and I'm ashamed, but I thought I'd admit it here for everybody. And I think it also has to do with the fact that yes, I went back on my word from last episode. I've been drinking hard. Okay. I've been drinking very hard, and I'm so hungover right now that I think I have two separate brains. And I think one of them knew that I was watching YouTube on my phone, and the other brain was like, where the fuck's my phone at?
It's gotten to that level, huh?
Good Lord. I feel, dude, is this what Edgar Allan Poe felt like every day?
It's like every writer, I think, felt like that all the time.
Oh God, It's awful.
I don't know why that reminds me of there's this guy on YouTube called Manslayer who does these like recuts of like Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and he like makes them say like new stuff. And there's a little bit of a wisdom in there in one of them where it's like, if you eat too much, you're fat. If you drink too much, you're drunk. If you fap too much, you're me.
Words to live by on a
Wonderful. And before we get into it, I mean, I know I never mentioned it or anything like that, but I did have a recent COVID exposure scare, and everything came back negative. I'm good to go. And let me tell you, isolation, not as fun as it seems, especially when you have to basically prep yourself for surgery if you want to go get a glass of water or something like that.
Yeah. That sucks, man. But I'm glad you're good to go. I'm glad everything's cool. It doesn't exist anyway, so like the chances of it coming back positive were very slim.
That's dangerous words there to live by, especially in this day and age. This is the episode of we're right on the heels of the American Capitol just got stormed by a bunch of Trumpers and shit. Like, the truth is that word's being thrown around a lot.
Okay, I don't want to be I'm not pro whatever happened at Capitol. Okay, who am I kidding? Yeah, I am, dude. The government needs to come down. We've been talking about this for a while now. We need a fresh, hard reset. But I will say there's better ways to go about it.
Yeah.
There's smarter ways to go about it. But it leads me to a point that I've been really into cyberpunk lately, just in general, right? Okay, and there's something that we need to talk about. We need to talk about the fact that a corporation, Twitter, has the ability to silence the president of the United States, whether it's the good call or not.
Yeah, well, of course they do. They're a company. They're not the press. They're not like, dude, it's a social media platform. They can do whatever the fuck they want.
And that's the problem. That is the problem that we're running into, is the power that these social media companies are getting, and they're turning into literal mega corporations.
dude, you're talking like the president can't just show up on every TV screen whenever the fuck he pleases. Like, dude, he could do that at any day. Twitter was just one avenue.
But it was a major avenue. You have to admit, Twitter has a lot of. Where do you go for your news? When I ask you to send me news clips, where the fuck do you send them from, Tasker?
Usually Twitter.
Twitter. That's right.
But that's
a lot of pull.
Well, that's the catch-22 of it, man. Is like, and also too, because what is it? The whole, they want to like repeal Section 230, which would just make it like, it's almost like would give the opposite intended effect. Cause it's like, if there was no Section 230, Trump would have been banned from Twitter from year one. Like, because that whole deal is like, the company can be sued for what their users do. So like, you know, it's not just for like liberal folk, it's for everybody. And like, nobody would have, Twitter would just crash and burn.
I think that's what needs to happen.
I disagree. I think it's a terrible idea.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all these different places, they need to crash and burn. We need to burn. Why are we storming the Capitol when we could be storming the headquarters of these different social media networks? You know what? This right here, right now, Nick's declaration to his loyal followers of the cult is I want you all to storm and breach the headquarters of these giant conglomerate corporations that lead social media. And we're going to take them down and dismantle them. So they don't hurt anybody ever again.
Well, good thing we're a small podcast. Otherwise, we'd have the FBI coming to our door very quickly, because that's the exact type of rhetoric that made this shit happen in the first place.
Yeah, I know. That's what
shit.
I'm trying to find a happy medium here. Okay.
A friendly form of anarchy, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's for the it's for the best. Like, we are 1 week out from me deleting my social media. Okay, this is something we talked about in the last episode. I was serious about that. In a week, Tasker's in charge of the social media for the podcast. The only way you're going to be able to get a hold of me is through Discord or email.
Carrier pigeon.
And if it's followed by anybody, I will kill it. All right?
Yeah, it's you're slowly transforming into the
Ted Kaczynski. I know. Everybody's been like, yes, you're turning into the Unabomber. I'm not.
Yes, exactly. And it was funny too. I was actually thinking about this the other day, because I know how much, because last episode we kind of went into the terminology of believers and non-believers. And I believe the term I used was crackpot, and you used ufologist.
Yes.
And then of course there's a side of skepticism. And then there was a point where I was like, where do our listeners lie? I guess it could be a little bit of everything. So wouldn't that technically make them like a so let's see, they're skeptical ufologists, but they're crackpots. So they're like crack so it'd be like crack skepticologist, crack skeptologist.
So that's what you want to. So if we're gonna, first off, normally we aren't the ones that like name our fan base, right? Like the fan base names themselves. But assuming you want us to name our fan base, that's what you want to go with.
Crack skeptologist.
That's what you want to go with. All right.
I mean, well, it doesn't have to catch on, and it probably won't. That's just me combining words and just thinking about shit. But like, because I feel like the crack also makes it sound like everyone's doing crack and just yelling at each other the whole time.
No, and they're not. See, that's the funny part. See, it's ironic.
So yeah, if you think it's fucking stupid, let us know. And yeah, well, no, we'll see if it catches on, if they adopt their own.
Sorry, I thought there was a spider on my wall and I almost had a heart attack on air.
Oh, that would have been bad.
Ooh.
Yep, good content.
Anyway, guys, so with that intro being said, just remember, storm the social media headquarters, yada yada. Well, let's tear them down.
This is not going to happen.
We gotta. I mean, they're silencing the president of the United States for better or for worse. I will not take a side.
Okay,
I'm saying that freedom of speech. I don't care. I don't care if it's on their own business platform. Doesn't matter. All right.
Right. See, man, this is some dangerous words you're talking. I think we need to talk about something a little bit more safer. Something like dead babies.
Ah, perfect. I'm glad that you came up with that.
Guess what today's episode is about? It's all about that really depressing shit.
Yes, so that's why we tried to make it funny in the beginning, so you would feel less depressed as the episode would go.
It's all a coping mechanism. But To further our agenda of coping before we dive into this cesspool of blood and carnage, how's horoscopes looking?
All right, let's see what the stars have on the menu for me today.
Mm-hmm.
Confusing communications could be the pattern for today, Cancer. Some paperwork you need to do for a task might be delayed, hung up in the mail, or filed in the wrong place. It might take a while to locate it, but it should turn up eventually. There might be some strange messages for you, and you may not be sure whether or not you should return the calls. The fuck?
Wow, that just sounds like office bullshit and dog eating my homework.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me. First off, I don't have a filing cabinet, and this is not the 80s. I don't file papers at my house.
It's just all emails and Word documents now, right?
Yeah, and then Tor browsers and all that kinds of good shit.
Right. Or you just throw them all across your floor, right?
Yeah, or my dog actually eats them. So I'm not 100% sure what this is trying to tell me today, but I will say if I get a weird call, I won't return the call. How about that?
That's a fair medium.
Stars, they're looking aight. They're looking pretty good today. Sex is a 3 out of 5.
Cool.
Vibe is a 3 out of 5. Hustle's a 4 out of 5, and success is a 4 out of 5. So I'm pretty even across the board.
And it seems like an upgrade from last week. So yeah, good shit.
Yeah, man, I'm feeling as hungover as I am. I think the stars are in my favor somehow.
Nice. And who knows, maybe the hungoverness is like what led you to intaking the proper caffeine to balance it out. And maybe you're better off than you would have been if you were just at like a regular sober.
Yeah, dude, 1 coffee and 2 Red Bulls deep so far, and I'm not stopping yet.
Nice. Great for your circulatory. Is that blood? That's blood, right? Circulatory system.
That is blood, man. And my arteries are crying right now.
Also, you just have just like a throbbing boner, because that was the point. That was the plot of the movie Crank, right? Where he just like constantly hit himself up with caffeine to like just maintain a boner.
No, he had to maintain his heart. He had to keep his heart pumping. But one of the ways he did that was by having sexual intercourse in public.
Oh, that is one way to do it.
Mm.
God, that's such a crazy. Just thinking about it is getting like my heart like going. Like fuck, crazy.
All right, how's your stars looking today, bud? Are you in trouble, or are you doing all right?
Let's see. For stars, I'm looking pretty good. We'll get to that in a sec. Let me read my little blurb, which says, today, you might not feel secure about your financial situation, Scorpio, and get a little nervous. Disconcerting information in the news about the general state of the world economy might have planted some unsettling seeds in your mind. On the whole, you should be pretty financially stable now, and this trend is likely to continue. Check out the facts before giving into panic. Well, of course, some fucking crazy shit's been going on in the world right now. Like, it's all over the place. And yeah, it's I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I think I'm more just angry. I'm just like, holy fuck. Like, with the insurrection thing, dude, like apparently that shit happened to Abraham Lincoln when he first got elected. They tried to storm the Capitol, but guess what? The fucking military actually like did their job, or the police force. I mean, they actually did their job and protected it. So like, just saying. But yeah, financially, I start my new job tomorrow, so that's kind of fun.
There you go, man. So I'd say that it was pretty spot on for you today.
Yep, pretty much. And it wasn't really a prediction. It was more of just a statement of the state of things. But, whatever. They can't all, lead you to the gold at the end of the rainbow, right?
True.
Yeah. So stars, sex is a 3 out of 5. Vibe is a 4 out of 5. Hustle is a 4 out of 5. And success is a 4 out of 5. So,
well, damn.
Looking pretty good today, except for the sexual thing.
Well, shit. Good on you, man. Good on you. See, look, we're doing all right today, man. We're holding up.
Yeah. Have these ratings ever gone to a 1 star or a 5 star? I feel like they're always like 2 to 3.
I think I've gotten a couple 5s, but I've never gotten a 1 before.
I think it's on purpose because they want us to pay for their service, and we're just using the free website.
Yeah, fuckers. Try and get me to pay for a horoscope. Come on.
Not in this lifetime. But yeah, now that we got that out of the way, we just got to bite the bullet, and we got to go into it. We've been putting it off because we know we're going to be sad.
We've stalled for as long as we could. All right.
Yep. But you probably clicked on this episode wanting some gruesome, bloody bullshit. So we got to give it to you.
And to those people, I say, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, some people, they just need an escape from the world, and sometimes they need to look at a story that feels so almost fictional. But this happened. This is very real.
It's scary, guys. All right. So hello and welcome back to the show. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different from what we usually do. And what I mean by that is both Tasker and I can agree that the things covered in this episode actually happened. Like he just said, this is 100% factual, whatever factual means to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about this before. It means different things to different people, but either way you look at it, it happened.
True. And we like doing episodes like these every once in a while because it's like, of course it ended up actually happening, but the time leading up to the unveiling of the actual truth, it was a conspiracy thing, and it does kind of go into, or more of it relates to, the conspiracy of well, let me kick it off by asking Nick, are you an organ donor on your license?
No. And they'll never ever get my organs. Never.
Because that is a huge conspiracy, is the whole idea of never register as an organ donor, because that means they'll let you die if you get into a car accident, or they're less likely to resuscitate you, because organs are quite the commodity, I'm told.
They are. So guys, why would you ever think about donating organs? What are you going to think? You're going to save some kid in India? No, they're going to let you die in surgery, much like you'll see in this episode. And okay, I don't want to get too into it, but that's how they get you. Don't ever donate your organs.
It's a scary idea, and it's also that whole I'm sure it was popularized in Charlie the Unicorn. You remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
Where it's like, what is it? He like wakes up in a bathtub full of ice, like, oh, they took my freaking kidney.
It happens, man.
Yeah. What is it? Isn't it like in Europe somewhere? That's where people like they go to like hostels and shit, and then they get drugged and they wake up missing an organ.
It happens a lot in Eastern Europe. A lot of weird shit happens in Eastern Europe, man.
Oh, that's so fucking creepy, dude. Like, it's one of those things like you never realize how scary it is until you really think about it, where it's like some people get kidnapped, some people get assaulted, but just as easily, one could argue, you could get drugged and get your fucking organs snatched.
And that's exactly what happened in Cyberpunk 2077. In the first prologue mission, you go to save a girl who was found. You find her in an ice bath, and her cyberware has been taken. It's basically the same shit. So,
my God, are you still playing that game?
Yeah, I got like 240 hours in it so far.
Nice. That good, huh?
It's a game. It's not a very good game, but it's a fun one.
That's what counts. But yeah, so that's sort of a good way to introduce like our subject matter, because it does kind of go hand in hand with that whole thing of like, you got to be careful. And we'll probably, as you guys know, I don't read, but I'm assuming we'll probably get into like, what they did to kind of dodge and stuff and get around all this bullshit before eventually the truth came out.
Yeah, and it's one guy. So we're going to be talking extensively about him. It's a whole fucking thing, man. Interesting.
So this is finally our because we don't usually get into like serial killers or shit like that, because it's kind of just not really like, I don't know. We feel like there's a lot of other podcasts that kind of do that as their base, and like we want to stick on brand, but every once in a while we'll find a good excuse to get into some real maniacs.
Yeah, dude. And this is the closest we're gonna get to true crime, pretty much. So enjoy it while it lasts. All right.
Yep, exactly. And we enjoy true crime, so it's like, you know what, it's a little bit of a treat for all of us.
And so I want you guys to enjoy the rarity of Tasker and I getting along for now. Okay.
Yep. This is so weird. It's almost funny in the spirit of the high level of division in our country right now. We're doing an episode where it's going to be a little bit more peaceful.
Yeah, except for the very, very end, but we'll get there.
Right on.
So today we are, as you can tell by the title, talking about the infamous Alder organs scandal in England. So, without further delay, let's all get our surgeon scrubs on, cut open some kids, and let's dive right into the subject.
Oh, geez. Woo, here we go.
Now, first and foremost, we need some basic background on what the scandal actually consisted of and what exactly took place. Now, the first thing to know is that Alder Hey is actually a children's hospital in West Derby, Liverpool, England.
And if we didn't emphasize this enough, these are children. This is happening to kids. This is not a adult murderer.
And we use the word children lightly because a hard majority, as you'll see, were infants and fetuses.
Yeah. Oh, nothing like dead babies to get your afternoon started, huh?
Hey, Tasker.
Yeah.
What bounces up and down at 100 miles per hour?
I don't know what.
A baby tied to the back of a truck. Don't laugh at that.
Hey, Nick.
What?
What sound does a baby make in a microwave?
Oh, God, what?
I don't know. I was too busy masturbating. Yep, it's going to be one of these kind of episodes, huh?
Yeah, I think, look, okay.
Yeah.
Look, guys, yes, those were dead baby jokes. This is the only time we're going to be allowed to do it.
We cope with humor.
Yes, we've said in the past, we cope with humor. This is how it's going to happen. If you're offended, turn off the podcast because that was the beginning. All right.
Yep. So, in case it wasn't clear, this is the dead baby joke episode. So be ready for that. Oh my God.
Okay. All right. So, Alder Hey Children's Hospital is one of the most funded hospitals in the National Health Service of the UK. And the National Health Service is one of 4 publicly funded healthcare systems all throughout the entirety of the UK. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that throughout this episode, when you hear the things you're going to hear as we go through the timeline, keep in mind the fact that Alder Hey was and still is one of the biggest and most advanced children's hospitals in all of the UK.
Oh, they never got shut down, huh? And they're still on top.
They are doing probably better than ever, which is suspicious in my mind, but they're doing awesome right now.
Oh, so they're the ones administering those COVID vaccines and stuff, huh?
With microchips and everything.
Well, yeah, it just goes to show, just because it's got flashy, clean buildings and all that stuff, one could argue, actually, that's the ones who are probably doing more criminal shit than the back alleyway people.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
Good to know.
Now, the scandal itself involves the fact that from 1988 to 1995, 2,000 medical pots, equaling over 3,000 organs, and I'm talking about just organs, we'll get into that later, were illegally harvested and retained from more than 850 children and infants.
Ooh, that's a lot of body parts.
So essentially, organs and tissue, there were a lot of hearts, brains, lungs, etc., were taken from almost every child or infant who had died at the hospital during that time period from 1988 to 1995. And this is all without parental consent or knowledge. That's the issue at hand here, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, because in case you didn't know, you can't do that. That's super illegal. You can't, when you die, the corpse and everything left over as weird as it sounds, is property of the family, right?
Yeah, property of, if you're a kid, it's property of your parents. If you're an adult, property of your spouse or next kin. It's not the hospital's property. It's nobody else's property.
Right. Yeah. It's like the last bit of dignity you get after death,
That's why you have to have on your card there, you're an organ donor, because you're giving consent through the state that if you die, your organs can be harvested, which is why I'm telling you not to do it.
And it's a scary argument because it's I used to be, to be fair and upfront and honest, this might get me killed, but I technically am an organ donor, but I was considering changing it because I'm not, see, and you know me, I'm not one to really take these theories that seriously, but there is that idea of maybe it's not they can't do it, they can't let you die and to take your organs, because if they figure that out, you're gonna go to jail. But like, it just kind of depends, because what if the cop helping you is just really fucked up, or what if the surgeon person, as you'll come to find, there are a lot of people, not a lot, it's actually incredibly rare, but there are people in the medical field that use their privileges to do evil.
Yes, there are always ulterior motives, no matter where you look in any industry.
Right.
And this is no different. As we get into the episode and the timeline, you guys will see just how not rare and how common this was at the time, actually, at least in the UK. I mean, it was happening everywhere, but it's scary. It's fucking horrifying. And we'll get into the numbers, all right?
Yeah. And this is, so to reiterate, this is between 88 and 95. So this is, not too far away. Like, long enough away to have been a long time. But like, most people who were around that during there still around to this day. So some people probably still remember.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Hell yeah. There's still hundreds and hundreds of pairs of parents out there who had to deal with this scandal.
Fuck.
Personally.
And if you're a listener in the UK and you're in this area, like, you might actually be very well aware of all this.
You might be one of the babies who made it.
The one that got away.
The one that got away, dude.
Oh, happy to have you here.
So to understand this more clearly, and to see how these events took place in order to bring this scandal to light, let's move on to the meat of the episode, which will be a detailed timeline of events from the beginning to the aftermath. And this is where it gets depressing.
Amen.
Yeah.
What's the difference between 100 dead babies and a Lamborghini?
What?
I don't have a Lamborghini in my garage.
That's a good one, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, there's some. It's actually kind of disgusting how clever they can be sometimes.
Remember, cope with comedy.
Cope with comedy. I do remember I did have friends that wouldn't talk to me after making dead baby jokes, because weirdly enough, where I picked a lot of them up was when I did theater in high school. Dead baby jokes were really funny back then.
That's weird, man. That the theater troupe loved dead baby jokes, huh?
Hey, man, we're all allowed to have a dark sense of humor. We were doing like Macbeth and shit.
Good point. I'll let it slide.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you saw me like instantly panic, but to say the name of the Scottish play on a stage is considered like a heavy curse. But we're not really on a stage. I'm just worried because we're doing a platform. But we're not. This is a podcast. I don't think Shakespeare accounted for that when he cursed his play.
First off, Shakespeare wasn't a real guy. All right. The plays that were supposedly written by Shakespeare were written by numerous playwrights and authors of the time, all under the same name, Shakespeare, William Shakespeare.
I have heard that before.
Second, a plebeian like himself, even if he was a real dude, doesn't know how to curse. I think you're okay. I think you're good.
Yeah, I knocked on wood just to be safe. And I got it. Hold on, let me grab the cleansing stone. That would help with something like that, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. See, right here.
You got your stuff. You got your quartz. You're good.
Yep. Do I gotta like rub it or something, or
no? I mean, you can keep it in your palm. You can keep it next to you. Whatever makes. Remember, it's the intent that matters. Keep it in your mind.
Man. Hell yeah, I'm gonna need it after this episode, anyways.
All right, let's start off the timeline by going all the way back to 1948 for some background. And this is when the collection of hearts from adults and deceased patients begins. And they were supposed to have consent to do so, and allegedly there was consent. Mm-hmm. Now, the collection of these hearts were mainly for research purposes, because the first heart transplant didn't actually take place until 1967. So before that, hearts were collected just for research purposes, probably leading up to and trying to figure out how to do heart transplants.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, dude, archaic medicine and shit is brutal. Like, I mean, obviously we're fortunate enough to grow up in a time where most of that shit's already been like said and done. But can you imagine like when anesthetic used to just be biting a plank of wood?
Yeah, and biting a plank of wood and chugging some whiskey.
Yep. And I've been blackout drunk before, and I could see how that might help. I would rather be blackout, but like that's fucking nuts. But yeah, when you had to research, you just got to cut it out and check it out.
Just look, you just dig around. You kind of poke around in it, get your hands dirty. You know, they didn't wear gloves back then, so they just kind of sucked it off their fingertips like KFC after.
That's fucking disgusting. Oh, good God.
Then, throughout the next decade in the 50s, one Dr. Ralph Latham began the consensual collection of children's body parts, and not just the heart, for research purposes, I'm sure. I didn't get any details as to what kind of research, but like Tasker said, older medicine was just basically, let's poke around in this shit and figure out what it does and what we can do with it. That's all that it had to do with, and now they were starting to collect children's body parts, consensually, allegedly.
Allegedly, which at the time wasn't too weird because, well, yeah, you gotta, like, children's bodies are different than ours, you know, and they wanted to research it because the reason why that's cool and fine is because with using the parts of children that are already deceased, you can save the lives of a bunch of ones that are still alive.
Yeah, exactly. So they're, for the most part, a lot of these doctors who were getting these body parts and organs properly were just in it to try and help and for the greater good, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. They had good intentions, but for this guy, maybe it started off that way, but maybe that awakened something in him.
And in the same decade, specifically 1995, fetuses and their organs, along with some of their tissue samples, were also starting to be collected for research purposes. And that's, again, allegedly consensual.
So right now, nothing illegal is going on. This is all like totally fine. Yeah, your child passed away. Would you at all be interested in donating their body to science to help other kids? And they say, yeah.
That's how it's supposed to go, right? That's exactly how it's supposed to go down. But the thing is, all throughout this time and all throughout most of the timeline, that's what most people thought was happening. And we'll see as things unravel, we don't know how long it's been going on, this unethical practice.
And this is why we can't have good things anymore. It's like how serial killers ruined like neighborhood trust and being able to leave your door unlocked.
Yeah, see, I wish I could leave my door unlocked, but I'm just going to, with knowing my luck, with my new house, right, I wish I could leave it unlocked all the time. But I bet you one day Richard Ramirez V2 would walk into my house, be like, nice place, man, and just start like, stabbing me a bunch of times in the stomach. And I just don't want that.
Nice place, motherfucker. And like chucks kiwi at you, your dog. And
so we can't have nice things. And serial killers and people with disgusting ulterior agendas is why we can't.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Obama. Okay, so now that we have some pre-scandal background on how things are supposed to happen, these doctors and researchers are supposed to be getting consent and approval from the parents of these dead babies and children. And as far as we know, up until this point, they have been, because we don't have proof otherwise. But we can assume some things flew under the radar, right?
Something's up. Something's fishy.
Now let's get to the year of infamy. 1986, the Institute of Child Health, also known as the ICH, opened up at Alder Bay Hospital. And after the ICH opened up, things were allegedly going smoothly, at least from the outside world.
Well, yeah, normally something like this is great news. Oh, a new children's hospital opened up. Everything's going well. Like, that's something we celebrate. And that's, I think, what makes this story even more fucked up is it's that whole, like, bastardizing a good thing, something that's normally generally considered to be a very positive, event.
It's the feeling of feeling helpless and unsafe in a place that's supposed to bring hope and safety.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's, well, yeah. And not to deviate too much, but like I know there was like that pharmacist who would purposefully change people's subscriptions to, or prescriptions.
Subscriptions, subscribe, change all their YouTube subscriptions.
Get their Twitch subs out, you got to make money somehow. But where he would switch out prescriptions because he thought like he was being merciful by like killing them basically, and what got away with like, and it's just shit we shouldn't have to worry about,
especially at a fucking children's hospital.
Right.
But in February of 1988, concern about the consent of harvesting children's organs began to rise among some of the more, let's say, ethical doctors and clinicians.
Fuck.
Like they started noticing some things around the office, or like, some paperwork is missing for this file. Something's going on. You know, like not enough evidence to where they're like, oh, I know who's doing it and somebody's fucking some stuff
Yeah.
up. But something sketchy started happening and some doctors began to notice.
Some vague inconsistencies where it's like it's pretty easy to write off and be like, yeah, whatever. But then it's like one of them's kind of like, it's kind of weird.
Exactly. And it's important to note that this happened in February of 1988 because these concerns began arising before the man in question even got the job at the hospital. So this had been going on, but he just took it to a whole new level, as we'll see.
Okay.
2 months later, in April of 1988, a Dutch man named Professor Dick van Velzen, what a name, was appointed chair of fetal and infant pathology at Alder Children's Hospital. And his job would be solely to perform post-mortem examinations on children and infants who died in the hospital.
That's a great thing to bring up. Oh, so what do you do at like the cocktail party?
Oh, no biggie. I just look at about 100 dead kids a day.
Fuck. I mean, you know, it's somebody's got to do it. Otherwise, you know, we won't learn how to, you know, protect more people. But like, god damn.
It sounds like a shit job, but look, I may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but even I know not to put a man named Dick in charge of the post-mortem examination of children.
I mean, you might be onto something with that.
So in September that same year, he officially takes his place as chair. And that's when the shit really hits the fan and eyebrows begin to rise even further.
So he's rising in power. Is that what's happening?
Well, he got the position, right? So now he's basically the sole post-mortem examiner for these kids at the hospital.
Okay, let me put an opinion out here. It is never a good idea to have a person who works with dead bodies work alone. I think when you combine isolation with a bunch of corpses, that's a recipe for fucking disaster, no matter what way you angle it.
Yeah, because it could turn into what it turns into here. It could turn into something sexual, like John Wayne Gacy.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, John Wayne Gacy had a quick stint of a job at a funeral home, and he was like, "Hey, this is pretty good."
But you're right, though. There is like a lot of like people who end up going these lengths tend to be around dead bodies a lot, and it's like. That's why I'm saying bring a friend. You know, if you're gonna go work with the dead body, you need somebody to keep you in line, keep you in check. Unless you're both into it, in which case it's your clusterfuck. So you know what? I'm gonna make a decree. If you're going to be working with dead bodies, groups of 3 or more.
3 or more people, and if you're all into it, man, you guys can have a groovy ass time in there.
Oh, good fucking god! At that point, you guys are basically a death cult waiting to happen.
Bunch of necromancers hanging out in a morgue. And you know what's cool about dead bodies, man, is they can't nag. They don't nag you, you know, after you have sex and with it. And they can't just be like, oh, I didn't even feel it go in for like the first half. They can't like talk about how small your wiener is. No, man, because they can't talk.
There's a lot of very concerning psychological questions that come up from that statement. So, Nick, is your job working at a mortuary by yourself?
Not yet.
Well, I will trust that you will do the right thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Come on, guys. Come on. I'm not gonna do that. It's all gross and old.
Yeah, I see. It's funny too because people are like, oh, I would never be a trash man. It's like, dude, like that's not even like that bad. Like you remember the video, the guy where it's like because there's people whose job it is to go into septic tanks when they're broken and fix them. And if you don't know what a septic tank is, it's where all the shit goes.
Literally.
Literal shit from your bathrooms. And there's a video of God, this episode is so gross. But
this episode is fucked already. This whole episode is disgusting.
We're already depraved, like no return. But like, who knows? Maybe this episode will be like the new like benchmark. If you can listen to this, then you're good for the rest of our show.
Yeah.
But there was that thing where it's like a guy in a septic tank and he's in just like full scuba gear, and it's just footage of him just like hanging out in there.
He just loves being in shit.
Scat shit is it's beyond me. I have no idea how a human could be that depraved. But you know what? I just shouldn't be surprised anymore.
I'll do almost anything sexually except for that.
Is that what's going to be quoted on your tombstone?
Yeah, see, I'll do almost anything once.
Except for scat fetish. That's good. I'm glad. There, you got to draw a line somewhere.
So for the next 2 years, under Velzen's watch and examination, the hospital, namely himself though, began harvesting organs, hearts, lungs, and brains from infants who died without their parents' knowledge.
And so there wasn't really a clear trigger. It just maybe he just kind of did it once or twice because he's like, oh, I need a little bit extra here and there, and this won't kill me. But then it just snowballed as it does.
It always, everything always snowballs, no matter what we're talking about. But we will be getting a little bit into the motivation, and it will become pretty clear here soon.
Okay, got it.
So there was some motivation behind what he was doing. Not justified, of course. Like it never,
Naturally.
motivations hardly are ever justified, but
Right.
We'll get into it.
Cool.
So in 1990, the very first complaint letter from grieving parents was received by the hospital. And this letter detailed how Professor Velzen failed to finalize the post-mortem reports after their child's death, which is his only fucking job.
Oh, that's pretty telling already.
And Velzen did not finalize the reports because it would indeed give away the fact that their dead baby's fucking heart went bye-bye and is somewhere else and not under the ground where the baby is.
Yeah, and that's such a tragic situation. Like, I know some people are like, well, at least they weren't alive for a couple years, and it's like, dude, you're losing a child is always going to be insanely difficult. Like, it's a really just sad, tragic way. And then on top of that, you don't get the report for it. Like, dude, that's do you remember that movie, The Lovely Bones? Did you ever watch that?
No, I did not.
Well, I'm not going to talk about it too much because this is already really fucking depressing, but it's about a kid who gets murdered, but in her spirit self, she tries to help her family find the truth of her killer and shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really sad and tragic, but the villain, he gets what's coming to him, but not in really a way he really deserves, which is pretty stupid, but anyways, holy fuck, this is so dark. This is the darkest thing we've ever done.
Hey Tasker.
Yeah.
What sits in the kitchen and keeps getting smaller and smaller?
What?
A baby combing its hair with a potato peeler.
Jesus Christ. Oh, wow. That's bad. Oh, God, that almost killed me. Oh, my fucking God. So I hope you guys are happy with this. We're doing this for you. Some of you have been asking, we want a more gruesome episode. And here you go.
Here you go, guys, with all the filth and the dumb baby jokes and the everything. You guys get everything in this episode, all right? We're hungover. This is depressing, and it's awesome, all right? Enjoy.
Oh my God. Happy Fun Alien Podcast. Yeah, we joke about grays.
Hey, this isn't an alien podcast. There's gonna be a couple people clicking on this episode. Is gonna be their first impression of our podcast.
This is true. That fills me with a level of dread I am unfamiliar with.
So in November of 1991, more and more complaints began to pile up involving Velzen and his lack of ability to finalize any post-mortem reports. So many, in fact, that Velzen is requested by the board to provide a backlog of the finalized reports.
Oh boy, that's when you're up to sketchy shit. That's the one report you do not want.
You do not want your boss being like, "Hey, that backlog of finalized reports I've been asking for a year and a half. I need those in a month." Basically, is what they're saying.
Even if I wasn't doing anything, if my boss came up to me and was like, "Hey, I need you to give me every report you've done for the past year," I'd be like, "Oh shit!"
Let alone taking baby organs. Yeah.
So this guy's probably sweating bullets.
Probably. See, at this time, Velzen's clinical research bay, where he actually conducted these post-mortem examinations, this was actually being held and conducted at Myrtle Street Children's Hospital, so not on site.
Mm-hmm.
But he was doing it for Alder Bay Hospital. They would send the bodies to him, essentially.
Gross.
So in lieu of all the concern building up around him, he was asked to also move his bay from Myrtle Street to Alder Hay. And I assume this is so the board and his superiors could keep a closer eye on him. You know what I mean? Like they're like, okay, this guy seems like he's doing something. And the fact that he has his own unit at a place where we can't physically watch over him is stressing us out. So we need him to move here.
Yeah, the only nice thing about all that is like, okay, it wasn't like a whole, like the hospital as a whole. It was mostly just this dude.
We'll see.
Ooh. Oh, fuck. All right. We gotta keep moving then.
Velzen claims that one does not simply move their clinical research from place to place. Yes, that was the Lord of the Rings reference. And yes, I watched all 3 of them finally. It was mediocre.
Well, that's because you wanted to hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's dumb.
yeah.
It's dumb, dude. What is a hobbit? Explain to me what a hobbit is and why it should be in a fantasy movie.
Oh, being a hobbit would be the dream. You just hang out, and you just eat all day and tend to your garden, and that's all you do.
There are very strict guidelines on what fantasy creatures should be, right? There's elves, there's dwarves, there's orcs, there's humans, and then there's little scatterings of different types of monsters and stuff. All right. I don't need a hobbit. I don't need sentient giant eagles. I don't need sentient giant trees in my movie. You know what I mean? Like,
I think you fail to acknowledge the impact J.R.R. Tolkien had in fantasy and how his take on elves, dwarves, etc., that you so highly treasure was of his invention. Like elves, dwarves, and all that shit existed before, but his take on them is what became the modern take of elves being like ageless, tall, and like svelte, and dwarves being bearded and grumpy, and that was Tolkien. Like he's the one who shaped modern fantasy, and yeah, so hobbits are just as legitimate.
I would venture to say, not to say that this is a mythological podcast, but I would venture to say that the Norse came up with the foundation for elves and humans and dwarves.
Well, yeah, they did. And then Tolkien took those concepts and his take on them became the modern agreed description of all these characters and stuff like that.
Well, Tolkien was a pedophile, you know, so let's
not.
Whatever, man.
Right. Nice try.
So like I said, Velzen said that it's going to be very difficult basically for him to move his whole clinical research unit from place to place. And she's trying to like kind of dodge their requests to like move to the hospital, and basically trying to keep his little hidey hole safe.
Mm-hmm.
And he even made up fictitious staff members who worked at the research bay trying to make a case as to why it would be so difficult to up and move.
Fucking Pepe Sylvia.
Yes, exactly.
Good God. And can you imagine though, working at this hospital, like when that rumor starts coming around, they're like, oh dude, like they have to like, cause you can bet these people were fucking talking about it. And like, they knew something was up.
Oh, hell yeah. You know, everybody in the break room was like, hey, that's the guy that they think is taking organs.
Dude, it's not a reputation you want to have really anywhere.
Nowhere. Except on the black market. Then you're good at your job.
Oh, yep, exactly. Then you're just stellar.
And on top of all that, Velzen made up the fact that he cleared the entire backlog of post-mortem reports from 1991 as requested, when he definitely did not. So he basically faked it and reported to the board with fake reports.
The early 90s equivalent of magneting your computer.
Yeah, exactly. Just a bunch of whiteout. Yep.
Good God. So he's panicking, but so far he thinks he's covered his ass.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, let's be honest, guys, he's looking sketchy as fuck. And even to us from the outside in, but especially to the board and other clinicians. And also, this is when the flow of hearts completely stops from Velzen's research unit, meaning he was keeping the hearts for himself for his own unauthorized and unethical experiments and research.
Well, yeah, because if you're experimenting, like that's the thing is like, you don't just like, oh yeah, here's your hearts, go take it home and have fun with it. It's like, no, all this shit needs to be documented and on record. Because as we stated before, organs is a big commodity. Like we're not just dealing with like, fingernails here, or like hair samples. Like this is a human organ, which is kind of a big deal. So naturally, when you've done work on it, you need the reports and the proof to back it up. So what's happening here, which I'm sure you already knew, and I'm just over explaining, but the reports stopped coming, but he was still getting organs. And that's where everyone's like, They're
like, wow, man, he must be really efficient over there.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And I do want to point out here, guys, that it's not just hearts, right? The hearts is the big thing because that's the one that everybody always talks about. But you have to remember, at this time, it was lungs, brains, tissue samples, kidneys, all gallbladders, everything and anything in between. It's just hearts is the one that everybody really looks for when it comes to, because we'll find out in a bit, a lot of these children died during open heart surgery. So that's what they look for.
Yeah. And there's also just symbolically, the human heart is, it's the core of our whole system. It's one of those organs. Well, I mean, most of our organs, if you lose it, you're dead. But like the heart is like an instant, like, it's a very symbolic thing. So there's a reason why we get so like hyper focused on it.
Exactly. Yeah. So keep that in mind, that it's, he's been taking hearts, but keep in mind it's a lot of other things too. And there was even a report when his laboratory was finally raided. Keep in mind that there was a report that allegedly there was the head of a fetus in a jar somewhere as well. Just a whole head.
Oh, so that part's alleged, but like, damn, isn't that what was it? House of a Thousand Corpses? Is that the one where they have the scene towards the end of the movie with all the body parts in jars?
When they go see Dr. Satan.
Yeah, and that's the one. There's like the clown and shit, right?
Captain Spaulding and Captain Spaulding and the Firefly family. And I think there's jars with like body parts in it right at the end when they finally go see Dr. Satan underground.
Yeah, I don't know, and I could be just mixing. It's been a while. I was very drunk when I saw that movie, but like, it just makes me think of that, like those like good old movie. Like. It was surprisingly good. It was gross as fuck, but that's kind of what made it. Like, I don't know. I feel like I can deal with those movies better than like jump scary movies,
Then speaking of those types of movies, I would like to give a recommendation, very fitting for this episode, called Necromantic.
Oh, Jesus.
It is, if you like exploitation, and I mean real hardcore exploitation movies, Necromantic, it has a K at the end. That's how you spell it. Look it up, watch it. You can watch it on Midnight Pulp. It's a streaming service for like exploitation and grindhouse movies. It's really good. There's body parts in jars. It's about a foreign couple who like to collect dead body parts and dead bodies to have menage a trois with. And it's very, it's sexual. Anyway, let's move on. Okay.
Right. Save your reputation.
Good Lord, man. I mean, it's a good movie, man. Look, I know none of you are going to watch it, so I'm just going to tell you what happens at the end.
Yeah.
The dude's in bed, jerking off. Good. And at the moment of ejaculation, he stabs himself a bunch of times in the stomach and just starts spurting blood and cum everywhere. It's awesome. It's a great movie.
Wow. That must have been low budget.
It was very bad. It was very poorly done.
Yeah, I had a feeling that they probably had a hard time finding sponsorships and financial assistance.
But hey, it's a fucking great movie.
Who are we to get in the way of other people's art, right?
Amen to that, brother.
Oh my God.
So, keeping in mind that he was keeping all these organs for himself, it makes sense that due to this fact, complaints surrounding Velzen not finalizing his reports increased drastically during this time period.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1992, an 11-month-year-old baby girl named Samantha Ricard died during open heart surgery at the Bristol Royal Infirmary. Now, this is a different hospital than the Alder Hay, but it all comes together.
Right.
And her body was sent to Velzen for an examination, as is tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something that has happened hundreds of times at this point, but it's an important one, and you'll see in a little bit. That's why I pointed out this specific case.
Yeah, because it's interesting how up to this point there's suspicion because they're trying to keep a better, closer eye on him, but he hasn't gone so far to where they've taken action on him yet.
Precisely.
Yep, and as we've seen with the government, sometimes there is a shocking lack of action for things that definitely should have been nipped in the butt way earlier than it should have.
Yes, and everybody's going to be really pissed as to how this story ends. Trust me, I was pissed too.
All right, cool. I love the drama.
So in 1994, concerns surrounding Velzen reached an all-time high, and the work he is allowed to do is highly restricted by the board. And upon hearing this news in December, he takes an unauthorized leave of duty, basically dipping out without telling anybody because he knows things are kind of circling around him.
Okay, so they did eventually restrict him.
They restricted him, but I mean, basically to like fetal practice. So he was allowed to look at like aborted fetuses and do examinations. He was allowed to look at miscarriages or stillborns or something like that, but not children who have died.
Yeah, basically
like
stuff. So stuff that was like already cleared. Like there's really nothing really more fucked up he can do.
True, yes. But the sad thing is, even with just fetuses, there was about 400 stored fetuses found as well.
Oh, fuck.
Like whole fetuses.
That's
so this dude found opportunity wherever he could take it, which is sad and also admirable.
That's not admirable at all. If it's not normal to find somebody with that level of dead body. I mean, fuck, dude. Everyone lost their minds when with the story of Jeffrey Dahmer when they found all the body parts in his house, but also he was keeping them in his house.
I mean, okay, that's a rookie fucking mistake. I'm sorry. Look, buddy, I know you're listening to me up there. Probably down there, actually. I don't know if you're in heaven, but look, because you were gay, right?
That's terrible.
No, I'm just kidding. It's because he was a serial killer.
And a cannibal.
And a cannibal.
And a rapist.
Yeah, look, being a serial killer and a rapist is really bad.
Yes.
Cannibalism, that depends culture to culture, right? That's just the simple fact of life. Like, sure, in America, it's frowned upon.
Cannibalism
it's not
is
technically illegal.
Really?
Really?
I'm pretty sure it is. I don't know about that. Let me see.
Cannibalism itself is not illegal. Look it up. I swear to you. It's how you get the meat that's usually illegal.
Yes. Overview. So this is just for California. Cannibalism consumption of another human's body matter, whether consensual or not. In the United States, there were no laws against cannibalism per se. But most, if not all, states have enacted laws that indirectly make it impossible to legally obtain and consume it. So, shit, you were actually right about that. So the act of it is not illegal,
right,
but it's the means of it that is very illegal.
Most of the time. I'm sure there's ways around those laws. So I'm just saying it's a matter of culture. But let's move on from Jeffrey Dahmer, rest in peace, or his victims or whatever, okay?
Yikes. Okay.
That was bad.
Rest in peace to the victims. I like that better.
To the victims, all those Filipinos, man.
Yeah, they didn't deserve it.
A month later, in January of 1995, right? This is about a month after he took his dip and he dealt it out of there.
Mm-hmm.
An audit revealed that there was a 68,000 pound deficit from Velzen's unit missing. And I mean 68,000 pounds like British currency, not.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, dude, how many fucking tons is that? Okay, fucking dude, I'm so United States. It's
so pounds as in the currency. So there was 68,000 pounds missing from the units. Basically their itinerary, right? Their books.
Right.
Don't know what it is. They never discussed what it was, but we can only speculate that those were, maybe some organs that he sold off to maybe better for worse pharmaceutical companies, black market, under the table.
Yeah. See, because I mean, are we going to get more? Because you said we're going to get more into motivation later, but like that. So as where it stands right now, that sounds about right. Because I mean, greed can really go a lot further than people. Because I mean, I would consider myself a fairly greedy person, but I also know the extent of the danger of greed. And I mean, I'm not going to go so far to. I mean, I'm more stingy than I am greedy. I think I just like not worrying about like fiscal problems and stuff. I wouldn't go so far to say like I'm gonna. Well, you know what, dude? I did a nice thing the other day, and it's gonna completely ruin the altruism by me talking about it. But I went to because you were talking to me about ramen the other day, and I shaved my beard down and saw my triple chin, and I was like, fuck, I need to start losing weight. So what better way to start off by having one last good meal of comfort food? And I ordered ramen. I ordered it through the Uber Eats, but for the pickup option because the website wasn't working and I just wanted to pick up the order. The guy at the store at the restaurant assumed I paid through Uber Eats, which I didn't. And I could have walked away with a free ramen, but I said, no, I didn't pay for this. I need to pay for it.
You dweeb.
Okay. Maybe if it was like half a year ago when I was like freaking out about my life, maybe I would have taken it being like, you know what, I deserve a W, but because I'm fucking poor and scared. But like, you know what, now that I got a job, I'm like, I can't be doing that shit no more. I gotta use my, otherwise I am just as bad as the rich people I rail on all the time.
All right, I'll let it slide, but man, you could have had some free ramen, buddy.
I could have, but I do remember the time some shit like that happened at Wendy's and I ended up getting like a free meal and I just like walked away and I told the story. No, it wasn't that. I think it was they forgot to scan a bottle of whiskey at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was like it was like a $10 on sale like Jim Beam, but like I wasn't really sure. I kind of noticed it, but just chose to not say anything. And I kind of brought it up around my mom. Dude, she was so mad.
Moms will always put you in line.
Yep. So I learned my lesson. And fortunately, it was a very cheap lesson. And yeah, karma always has a way of getting. Anyways, I'm getting too far into this. Let's talk about the dead babies again.
Yeah, let's talk about the dead babies. Let's get back on track, everybody. Come on, I'm tired of talking about all this
morality
shit. I don't have morals.
Right. So he had a ton of dead infants, 68,000 pounds, which is money deficit from the unit. And then what happens?
So after learning about this deficit from the audit, all funding and anything that has to do with him freezes for the time being. And the following month, the board demands a backlog of all post-mortem services not given previously. All of it. Now they're starting to get pissed.
Right. So now they're doing the broad sweep of, all right, let's just look at it all.
And it was then that Velzen realized his entire fetal organ and tissue collection was pretty much going to be found out. So he revealed it to the board.
Oh.
He also confirms that all of the samples taken had no parental consent or medical ethical approval.
Damn. So
he just took the L. He took it hard.
Fuck. That's like, like, I don't want to call that like ballsy because the dude's a shithead, but like, wow. He just straight up said, you know what? They're going to find out anyways. Here it is.
Yes, and before they had a chance to fire him, so it was literally probably seconds after the reveal, Velzen resigns and leaves Liverpool.
Oh my God.
Because he knows he's fucked.
I just see the scene. It's like he's just opened the door and they're all looking at all the jars and they're all just like, one dude's throwing up in the background and he's like, by the way, here's my 2-week letter of resignation. And
can I get a letter of recommendation?
My last available work day is going to be February 2nd. So, jeez.
Now, keep in mind, yes, he was doing this for years upon years. And so have a lot of other hospitals around the world, by the way. And he finally revealed it to Alder Hey. But Alder Hey was keeping it to themselves, still not informing the parents that the organs of their dead children had been taken illegally for God knows what weird research he was doing. So they were trying to keep it shut.
Yeah, because like you said, it's a complete shattering of the trust of a place of comfort and safety and hope. And it's of course, obviously the act itself is despicable because one could argue too, it's like, well, we'll probably get into it more, but like, as it stood in that moment, it just seemed like all he was doing was just like pocketing organs, which is fucked up. But the next argument is like, well, at least he wasn't like purposefully murdering them. But that's something that's a point of contention, though. That
is a huge point of contention. That's something that we'll talk about briefly, but it's something that needs to be said because there's no way. Okay, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Now let's go to 1996. And this is when things really begin to unravel for Alder Hey and all these hospitals.
Mm.
So you remember that baby who died in open heart surgery I mentioned earlier, right? Samantha Rickard, the 11-month-old?
Mm-hmm.
Well, her mother, Helen Rickard, called the Bristol Royal Infirmary asking for medical records for her daughter's death. So this was 4 years after her daughter died.
Mm-hmm.
Upon doing so, she found a letter in the reports saying that her daughter's heart had been retained. And she obviously had no knowledge of this.
That's it, dude. Sometimes these words that are just like really fancy ways to say really fucked up shit is like, I don't know why that's so terrifying to think of like looking at like a death certificate or like a death report that says like status of organs just says retained.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
And Helen was understandably pissed off, right?
Yeah, understandable, yes.
And she demanded that the heart be returned to her for a proper burial if it was still around.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. So after this, she received the heart, and after she fucking like cooled down a bit, she started reaching out to other families who she knew were in similar situations to her from the past, where their children had died at these hospitals around the UK, to let them know something sketchy as fuck was happening at these hospitals, namely Alder and Bristol Royal Infirmary. However, this was happening at hospitals all over the United Kingdom and all over the world at the time.
So you said there was numerous complaints, but this lady, Helen Rickard, she was the one who pushed it far enough to actually get results?
Pretty much, because they were getting complaints from parents and clinicians about Velzen not finalizing these reports. And by finalizing, I just think they mean he wasn't producing them. Like he wasn't like doing the reports, which was like his only fucking job, right?
Oh, okay, I get it. So basically, they're these other families and stuff like that, their children's passed away, and it's terrible and it's sad. So to them, to their knowledge, the bodies are essentially already taken care of, and they just want their death certificates, and they just want the paperwork associated with it. So, and they just never got it, and probably were just like, whatever, we're grieving, we just want to move on. Helen Rickard, however, was like, fuck that. I don't care how sad I am. I want the papers. And when she got the papers, it said retained. And then she was like, what the fuck? So she was the first one to really see like what was going on. Everyone else just kind of just let it go, because understandably so. Like grief is something that it's like when you're outside of it, it's very easy to be like, God, these people are crazy. Like, but nah, man, it really can throw you into a spiral.
Yeah. So she was the first person to push it far enough to actually get information.
Right. Damn, that's so crazy, because yeah, and that's that's how it is, because nobody wants to like look up if that's kind of the last thing you're thinking about if somebody dies in the hospital. It's like, oh, I hope they're not harvesting their organs. Like, no, they don't give a fuck about this. But so wow, she ended up just kind of just stumbling on it.
Yeah, and right, and which is a good thing, because like really, so this was happening, like I said, all over, and she was getting in touch with all kinds of people to let them know something was happening at these hospitals, right?
Right.
And with these other families that she was in cahoots with, they formed a coalition of parents, and they uncovered illegal and ethical harvesting of their dead children's organs as well.
Wow.
And Alder was at the center because of the sheer number of organs taken there, and that the sheer number of organs that were being stored at the hospital. And we'll get into those numbers a little bit later.
Oh, so what's like really important though to point out here is that, of course, this episode really emphasized the Alder situation, but like they were not even close to being the only ones doing this.
Oh, hell no, dude. There had to have been, I think it was like 1,000 different hospitals at the time that were found doing this type of stuff. But Alder gets the name of the scandal because of Velzen, the guy that worked there, and the one guy that he's the poster boy for organ harvesting and retention illegally.
So this is where the conspiracy part of the episode comes in, because this is, like we said, this is a conspiracy that actually ended up being real, because I can almost guarantee you there's people all the time, oh yeah, they're going to harvest your organs. Like, oh yeah. Cause I don't know how far conspiracy theories went back then, but like this one ended up being true. And all it took was that one lady to finally push hard enough to finally get some proof, instead of just saying like, fuck it, whatever. They're already dead. I guess I don't really need the paper, but somebody did. And wow.
Yep.
That's so crazy. Fuck.
So this group of parents who were helping uncover things little by little was called, they ended up forming a group and they called it the Bristol Heart Children Action Group. And not only did they set up a support group to help other parents who had gone through the same thing, but they helped bring awareness to the shady going-ons at these hospitals.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it was the 80s. It was past the time of like serial killers and stuff like that. So, or during it, really, huh?
Yeah, this was this was in the 90s at this point. So
Okay.
the serial killer era was kind of on its way out. So now we can uncover like the less obvious crimes happening around the world.
Right. I love how it's like there's a specific like the Attitude Era in WWE.
Yeah, exactly. Dude. We just recognize the serial killer era as the late 60s to like the mid 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's recognized. I mean, yeah, because I mean, there's always like some crazy infamous like murderers and shit like that. But that was like when all the big hitters were coming out. And we even talked about the theory of like with the paint and shit that made people go crazy.
Hell yeah, lead, man. Woo!
Lead. Yep. Lead poisoning. That'll do it.
Okay, so one of the most damning coincidences, and I hesitate to call it a coincidence, was the fact that the ratio of illegally retained hearts and deaths of infants during open heart surgery at the hospitals was damning to say the least. Anybody with a brain can put together 2 and 2, right? So essentially what we're beginning to suspect here is foul play. But unfortunately, there's no hard evidence of this. But I mean, the numbers just make sense that all these kids, young kids, I'm talking babies, infants, young children, are dropping like flies during open heart surgery and at a place now known to illegally harvest hearts.
Yeah, that's pretty. It doesn't take a genius to be like, because like, and that's what's so fucked. And that's kind of like with like what Trump's doing. Like, obviously, he's like done some fucked shit. But like, if you use your rhetoric right and you line it up the right way, technically it's not on paper. Technically, it can't be proven. So, you know, I could sit here and say, I think Trump did it all, but that's never going to lead to anything. And I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinions about the matter and stuff like that. But it's like, that's kind of what's going on is like, you know, it's weird how if you frame it a certain way, because like, yeah, when you're performing surgery, you can just be like, well, it just wasn't successful. They just didn't make it. But he can just, you know, happen to neglect to incision a certain area or happen to neglect to do a specific thing. But like, you know, there's no real hard way to prove it.
Exactly. So, I mean, we can speculate all we want. We're never going to know for sure because we don't have the proof, but come on.
Oh, when the fatality rate's that high to an organ harvest, like, yeah, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Like, yeah. Obviously.
Hey, Tasker.
Yeah.
What's grosser than 10 dead babies nailed to a tree?
What?
1 dead baby nailed to 10 trees.
Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, what is the difference between a dead baby and a granola bar?
What?
About 500 calories. It's terrible.
Oh God, this is a top-notch show we have.
I said it before. This is by far the darkest episode I think we've ever done. And if you've made it this far and you like this new shade of the podcast, like we can do another one of these.
Yeah, you sick fucks. I'm in.
I mean, despite the gruesome nature, this is very interesting. And I think it's a very important thing to talk about because this shit blew the lid on a giant conspiracy that ended up being true. It's like, how crazy if just one day something lined up and some commoner found out something super damning and it just came out.
Yeah, exactly. It could pop off anytime. We're lucky enough to have an actual story here that happened, and we got to see a conspiracy go from conspiracy to reality.
Yeah, which is amazing because that does not happen very much. But like I said, I think that the most harrowing part of this is how it was like, I went into this thinking it was just Alder Hey, but no, it was like a whole, like this was happening everywhere. Australia,
United States, any place with modern healthcare at the time was doing this.
Insane.
Now, all
DTA.
DTA, dude, don't trust anybody.
Mm-hmm. Smart words of wisdom.
All of this awareness surrounding the unethical practices at Alder Hey and other hospitals led to an official investigation in December of 1999. And this investigation was completed in 2001 and revealed that at Alder Hey alone, over 105,000 organs, stillborns/fetuses, and body parts were stored at the hospital. And of course, most of them were illegally harvested and retained by our boy, Professor Dick Van Velzen.
Okay, so before the shock value makes you turn the podcast off, it's not too unusual that hospitals would have organs and body parts. It is a hospital after all. That's a fucking lot, though.
That's a lot of organs.
That is way too much. Like, I can expect like a couple thousand, but 105,000.
And this is just at one hospital. Imagine even just the Bristol hospital we mentioned earlier, the infirmary. Imagine how many combined between those two. It's the numbers are staggering.
That's horrifying. That's crazy. It is like a scene out of, I bet you in there, it was a scene out of a horror movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When they first discovered it, it was pretty bad. They were like in bags and like stored improperly. And yeah, it was fucking gross.
Oh, so it wasn't like a big, like fancy office with rows of jars. Like they were just like throwing them places
for the most part, because they ran out of room.
That's so scary and weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Jesus Christ. So it's like, it's almost like they were just hanging on to them just for funsies for half of it. Like, because if you're going to do experiments and shit on it, I imagine you'd want to keep them preserved, you know?
Yeah, you would think, but there's also, you know, we'll get into some other motivations as well. But yeah, it's just weird, man. It's just fucking weird. All right. This whole situation is just disgusting.
Yes, I agree.
Well, throughout the entire investigation process, pretty much since the Bristol Heart Children Action Group began exposing these hospitals on their own, countless parents whose children had died at these hospitals began making inquiries. I don't know why I said it like that. What am I, British? Began making inquiries into whether or not their baby's organs had been retained without their knowledge. Now that it's all coming to light, every parent who had a kid die at these hospitals during this time period was like, oh, fuck.
Yep. Got to check in. All the people who wrote it off was like, oh, shit. That's why. Oh, my God. Yep. I can't. What a frenzy.
Holy shit. And it was so bad that at Alder Hey, when this influx of calls began, they crashed their phone servers often.
Wow.
Now, as to be expected, right, almost all of them had gotten confirmation that, yes, this was the case. Your child's organs were retained without your knowledge. So imagine being like a medium wage receptionist at a hospital, and you have to be the person that's like all day, every day, just like, yeah.
Yep. That's exactly. Holy shit. And dude, cause I had a cousin who was, I don't think it was like a call center for the hospital where, basically you have to, their job was to call people who owed, for their medical bills and shit.
Oh
yeah. But the thing is you had a script and you had to stick to it. And they had somebody like listen, every person had a person listening to your calls at all times to make sure you're saying exactly what you're supposed to say, because you're a debt collector essentially. And I guess at one point, one of the big things is if they can't pay, they have to say, you have to tell them, is there any way you can open a credit card because you have to do it. It was part of the script and your bosses were listening to you and you had to do it. So apparently at one of the calls, he had this like old lady who had the most like depressing sob story. It was just this brutal. He had every bit of sympathy for her, every bit of it, but she finished her tale. Is there any way you can open a credit card? So yeah, I imagine that was a very bad day to work as a hospital reception.
That sucks, man.
Christ.
So yeah, it's extremely fucked up that all these cases are coming to light. All these parents are finding out that their children's organs or tissue have been harvested without their knowledge. But Do you want to know what's worse than that?
Oh God, how can it get worse?
These parents had already buried their children once, and with the recently retrieved organs in hand, they now had to excavate their children and perform second burials years
Oh my
later.
God. That's so sad. That's really fucked up.
And some of them even had third funerals upon finding out that other organs had recently been pulled from the illegal inventory after they found like the second pair of organs. They would so picture this. They would initially get confirmation on their lungs were taken, right?
Yeah.
Then they would bury their children with their lungs. And then there would be something else that comes up and they're like, so they'd get a call, be like, hey, actually their heart was missing too, and we have it here for you to pick up. Then they had to do a third funeral.
Oh my God. That's so just all of that. You're reliving everything, I'm sure. Like
Mhm.
it brings all of it back. And just fucking fucking medical, like, dude, holy shit.
So that's the worst of it. That is in my opinion, what we talked about today. That is just somber.
Yeah, the real impact it has and stuff, and just what happens when people in these positions, because the sanctity of a human body and how like sacred it really is, because it's us as a people and as a species, and it's our culture, and that we like to honor our dead because we pride ourselves on our intercommunication and personalities and memories and stuff like that. That's really important. And I think, because I mean, obviously, horror movies are great, and we all love a good old hack and slash film and all that stuff. And it's fun, I think, because we also get to like forget how morbid that shit really is
Mhm.
by turning it into entertainment for us. But it's like the reality is in these situations, it's really brutal. And like I don't know if we ever brought this up before, but like the whole idea of like, coping and grieving is we did bring it up earlier, grieving, and that's sort of like what it does to you. Like it's one of those, until you've experienced it, it's a fucking deal.
Yeah, and imagine having to do it 3 times.
Jesus Christ.
So in that same year that the investigation was completed, 2001, the UK General Medicine Council temporarily suspended Velzen's medical license.
Temporarily?
Yeah, and only temporarily for the time, because the proper investigative authorities had to conduct their usual legal business and further investigations, right? So they were trying to get to the very bottom.
So it was like when they put a temp ban on Trump's Twitter, and then 2 days later, then they after they figured out what was really going on.
It's pretty much the same thing, yeah.
Got it.
So in 2003, Alder Hospital accepted a £5 million settlement with the families who had found out that their children's organs had been retained. And this,
sorry.
You'll see the math here. It equals out to £5,000 per child. That's it.
I'm surprised they even wanted to settle, like, at all. Like, I'd figured the parents would want to fight to, lack of a better term, fight to the death for this.
Well, it's difficult because, it's hard to fight a hospital with an entire legal team, and the best chance they had to get some kind of compensation out of it was a settlement.
Right. And that was the number that was agreed to. And it's like,
but
I guess it is
£5,000 per child. That ain't like if my kid died in a hospital and their organs were illegally retained and used for God knows what, I would expect more than $5,000.
Yeah, for real. That's so weird. That's really bizarre how they came to that number.
But the math here means that there was only 1,000 well, I don't want to say only, but that means that there's 1,000 cases at Alder alone that were settled for. But I want you to keep in mind that that's only the parents who looked into it and got confirmation and were a part of the settlement. There were unclaimed organs at the hospital from parents who had either A, no idea what was going on, B, didn't care, or C, never followed up. So that was there was 1,000 cases, and that's only the ones that got confirmation. But that's still 1,000 cases of confirmation of kids dying and having their organs taken at one hospital.
Right. And keeping in mind the context of sometimes when people die and it's like they're just like, you know what, no, I want this to be a done deal. I don't care what happened. Like, I just want to just move on from this because, like we said before, with like the second or third burials, you got to go through all that shit over again. So it's like, fuck that. Like, nah, I'm just going to let it be.
Unbelievable, man.
Wow. That's insane.
But speaking of unclaimed organs, these unclaimed remains, like organs, tissue samples, all these different things in their inventory that they were forced to get rid of properly. They did get their own burials out of respect of just the parts, the body parts, the organs, but there were so many of them that it took until 2010 to finish giving them all proper burials.
Wow. What was going on in 2010? Wasn't there something popular? Sorry, just looking it up. Inception came out. Let's see. Tangled, Disney's Tangled, that came out.
Mm-hmm.
The Social Network, that movie with your favorite Jesse Eisenberg.
I fucking hate Jesse Eisenberg. He's the worst.
Toy Story 3. Okay, KO. Okay, fuck, that was a TV show. Okay, Go, the band did their Rube Goldberg Machine video where they were really popular for their
yeah, the dumb treadmill bullshit. Yeah, we remember. Yeah. We all remember Okay Go and their shit music.
They were catchy, but I never really got into them. Yeah, so it was kind of like there was some just really cool movies. I think it was a year for movies.
It was a year for movies, and it was a year for burying unclaimed organs from a children's hospital.
Good God. Well, at least with the two of us, we were having a jolly good time in 2010, right?
Dude, I was dancing to LMFAO and getting crunk on Four Loko, and hell yeah, man.
That was at the height of your monster addiction, right?
It was bad. Monsters and Slim Jims, baby.
Good stuff. Crazy. That was over 10 years ago.
Ugh, shut up. You shut up. I don't need to be reminded.
Oh, you're welcome.
But out of the ashes of this tragedy, in 2004, this scandal led to the creation of legislation under the name the Human Tissue Act of 2004.
Good. Jesus.
And this act helped to regulate the retention of organs all throughout the UK, except for Scotland, but they do have their own version of a similar act. So they're not like harvesting organs over there.
Holy shit. Yeah, necessary legislation.
And basically, these supplied with stricter guidelines on how to obtain permission to retain organs of deceased people. And the act also prohibits the sale of organs, which is something we will touch on momentarily.
Wait, so it wasn't illegal before?
No. It was, well, it's like cannibalism. The act wasn't illegal, but how'd you get the organs?
Fuck, that's so weird.
And this act is all good and well, but in my humble opinion, and I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me out there, unless you're a complete psychopath, this should have been around a lot longer. This should have been around a lot earlier than 2004.
Yep, like a lot of big deals that happen, it's usually just too little too late.
And perhaps none of this would have happened if it was already in place. Honestly, if there were stricter guidelines, there's no way these hospitals could have gotten away with it for so long.
Mm-hmm. So then the conspiracy that comes up then is, do you think this is still happening?
At hospitals?
Yeah.
Totally. Like, totally. I don't think that there's any way to catch them. It depends on how much money you have in your pocket as a hospital and how much pull you have with, people who are supposed to enforce these types of things.
Right.
Or it's how clever you are. How can you get away with it? If you can get away with it easy, then who gives a shit how much money you have?
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems more like with the legislation now, it seems like it's more of like an individualized kind of case to case thing where, because as a hospital, you can't, whereas back then it sounds like, because, back in the day, there was a lot of like honor system, So back then it was just like, just don't do it because it's fucked up. But
yeah,
everybody did it maybe a little bit, but then it got out of hand when people got a little too greedy. But nowadays, now that it's like as illegal as it comes, now it's like, how fucked up are you to try to find a way to get around it?
Exactly. You can get around any piece of legislation. It depends on how committed you are to doing so.
Crazy.
And later that year, in December of 2004, The Crown Prosecution Service determined, and now this is where people are going to get pissed, that Professor Velzen would not be criminally prosecuted due to a lack of hard evidence that the organs were being retained without consent.
Boo. That's fucking... Dude, that's the worst. And the villain just gets away scot-free.
And he essentially does in this story, which is the most frustrating thing ever. And by the way, the fact that they didn't have allegedly have hard evidence of the whole thing is a total crock of shit, because I would imagine that a lack of finalized post-mortem reports, which was his sole job, by the way, would look a little suspicious.
Yeah, I wonder if a lot of this is just saving face, because I mean, they already had the settlement with all the parents, so they're just like, okay, let's get this shit wrapped up as long as possible. We don't want a court case. We don't want people to keep losing more, because they know that shit would be publicized as hell. So I would say this is more of an active damage control.
But man, think about how those parents feel, dude, knowing the person who's been taking your kids' hearts and lungs out without your permission is like not going to jail. And not only is he not going to jail, but in 2005, a few months later, Velzen was permanently banned from practicing medicine in the UK. That was it. That was it. That's all he got. He didn't get any jail time. He wasn't even, his medical license was only banned in the UK. He could easily go anywhere else and try and get a job.
Wow. And it took until 2005 for even that to happen.
Yep. So
Dude.
like he could like go anywhere and still, I mean, despite, his reputation now, I doubt he could get a job easily, but he could. They didn't just take away his medical license in general, which would still even be too light of a sentence, but just the UK. So he did at one point fuck off to Canada while this was all happening and got a job at a hospital there. So nothing really happened to him.
So really the only thing he got was disgrace, and that's it.
Yeah.
Fucking dumb.
That's it. And this is really the really disgusting thing here, by the way, is that Velzen believes he has done nothing wrong.
He thought he was in the right, huh? I'm doing this. I'm not allowed to do it, but I have to do it for the sake of my patients, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. And in 1999, when this was hot, when the investigations were hot, during an interview, he was asked what it was like to be the villain, to which he replied, quote, "I am nothing of the sort," unquote. And he later went on to say in that interview, quote, "I have dedicated my life to helping children," unquote.
Yeah, it smells like a lawyer pre-written statement to me.
Unbelievable, man. So that's the timeline. That is the timeline of the Alder organ scandal. Of course, now we all know it's not just Alder. It's actually a lot of different fucking hospitals doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely fucked mess. But throughout it, questions arise. Like, why? That's the main question. What the fuck is the motivation behind all this?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about it here and try and get some clarification.
Right. So some motivation. Why did he do it?
Now, the first and most obvious explanation when we think about what humans want most in life is money. Moolah.
Mm-hmm. Cash flow.
And for instance, hospitals in Birmingham and Liverpool at the time were selling illegally harvested organs from their dead children patients to pharmaceutical companies under the table. So the pharmaceutical companies didn't have to pay full price for research organs.
So technically did have a good intent for the research, but also that's really fucked up.
Yeah, it's fucked. It's fucked up because it's how you're getting him, right?
Right.
All of this all comes back to the fact that there was no consent given by the parents.
Right.
Regardless of what the intention was. And I'm sure there were people at these hospitals who had ties with the black market selling because during this time period, the black market was booming. Because you have to remember, we didn't have like the Silk Road, we didn't have the dark web and all this shit to like buy things illegally for cheap. So the black market was a physical market that was an underground market, and believe it or not, organs was a pretty hot commodity there.
Mm,
So selling
crazy.
these organs was a way to get money under the table for a lot of the people working at these hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Another explanation is direct research. And what I mean by this is it's kind of like what Professor Velzen was most guilty of here. Direct. So instead of selling these off to other clinicians or pharmaceutical companies to conduct research under the table, the person harvesting the organs would conduct the research themselves. Like they would use it for their own research purposes.
Yikes. So just basically taking them home like toys, huh?
Exactly. And I have no confirmation on like that he was selling any of the organs that he retained, but he had admitted to doing research with the organs. And that's that would be his own unethical and unauthorized research.
So we don't really have confirmation of what he did or didn't do, or what the experiments, heavy quotations on that, may or may not be. So there could have been some like you said, foul play and wrongdoing, but the tracks were covered up too much. And that's another kind of scary fact to think about sometimes, is how many people out there who are like murderers or like evil people who just never did get caught. Because we know the stories of the ones who got caught, but usually it's because the operation got so big and they were so good at it that eventually, it comes out, or, how that affects your psyche usually degrades it to a point where it's a pride thing. Some argue that it's because it's like some people, they like being caught because the attention and to be known as this, because that transcends their love of murder and corpses. But what about the people who are just in it for just the murder itself and they just almost get away with it?
Yeah. You never really know. That's the scary part about all this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we don't have details on what kind of experiments he was doing because it was never released to the public.
Right.
But he did confirm that he was doing it.
Yeah. Or it got so, because like we've been seeing, it sounds like the hospitals were doing their best to get this shit covered up and over with as soon as possible. So I could see them. I mean, they didn't even charge him, for God's sake. So that I think they covered something up.
Totally. So instead of having to pay for ethically harvested organs to conduct research on, he basically looked at all of these dead babies as a buffet of free research material and stockpiled what he could. That was his motivation.
That's so crazy. Just like a way to try to get, because also too, like I was going to say, a way to get ahead. Because if you think about it, if you made like a huge discovery, or like you invented a new surgery protocol that like, saves a shit ton of lives, it's money for the rest of your life. Like you're good for the rest of your life. And not only that, but there's also like the pride that comes with it, and you'll be more, there's a big benefit to you both monetarily and reputation wise if you can figure this shit out. So it sounds to me like he was almost, it's just, so he might not have been like an intentionally evil person per se. Obviously what he did is definitely evil. And see, and that's the risk of ambition. When you go too far with your ambitions, and you might be so convinced that you're doing like what needs to be done because you want to help these children and get the pride and for the skills that you've developed that you feel you deserve. But there is, like I said before, there's always a fine line. And when you cross it, sometimes there's no going back.
And he never went back based off of how many he collected.
Yeah. Like, and you were saying like some of that shit was in like sacks and stuff. Sounds like he wasn't even like really doing what he was saying he was doing. So that's the part where I'm like, And
look, I don't know if he was actually conducting research to help and benefit the area of medicine he's in, or if it was actually some kind of Frankenstein-esque type shit he was doing, like we don't know. We'll never know. But either way, he went about it all wrong without getting permission from the parents or from the proper medical ethical authorities.
Yeah, because maybe he was researching some like I don't know, like Fountain of Youth bullshit or something like that, which was just like completely like, something that if it came out, it would just be completely shit on.
And I'm really glad that you brought up the Fountain of Youth.
Uh-oh.
Because there is another explanation that I'd like to get into.
Uh-oh.
To my more, how do I put this? To my more third eye open, savvy listeners out there.
Oh boy, we're coming right back to where we usually are.
When you think of dead children and babies, What's the first word that comes to your mind? I'm going to no, not tragedy, although it is quite sad.
Right.
Except for the jokes we've been making.
Yeah, this is pretty bad.
No, the word is adrenochromes.
Oh my fucking God. You think he was harvesting for adrenochromes?
I believe. Now, this is my personal opinion.
Uh-huh.
I believe that he was working for a power bigger than us, bigger than the government, in order, along with all these other hospitals, people at these hospitals, to harvest, to basically purposefully kill and harvest kids for what might be some kind of, like Tasker said, fountain of youth project. Now, yes, it is true. You need to have live children or recently deceased children to obtain adrenochromes.
Mm-hmm.
However, if stored properly in the heart, you can get adrenochromes from long deceased hearts, because that's basically, and also from the glands that produce adrenaline, you can get that as well. So those are, I mean, like I said, there were glands, there was gallbladders, there was all kinds of shit being taken from these children. The glands that contain the adrenaline that is in the blood that leads to adrenochromes could easily have been harvested and sold to our government and the people who run the government.
And just to recap for any listener who might be just tuning in, what are adrenochromes again?
Adrenochromes are, it's a molecule, it's a chemical in the blood of children and babies who, when scared, it goes through their veins. And basically what happens is if you drink this blood, it has youthful properties and can give you everlasting life. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this was taking place in the UK, and who lives in the UK and who is going to apparently live forever? The Queen of England.
So maybe that's why they were okay with and just shut it down so quick, because she already got her supply.
Exactly. And look, like I said, that you can get these adrenochromes stored up in different organs and different glands in the body. It's easier to have look, I'm not giving you guys like a guide on how to like do this, but I'm just saying it's easier to have the kids alive because you just have to drink the blood.
So this is their attempt at doing a more ethically sourced farming of adrenochromes.
I don't know, man. I don't think any of it's ethical. I'm just saying, I think it's a way to store it. I think they found a way to store the adrenochromes in certain organs to use for future use. So essentially they're making it more efficient for themselves because they no longer need live children. They have like a storage of like 100,000 organs that they can eat and get these adrenochromes from. That's my personal opinion. I think they found a way to store it in these organs.
Wasn't Clinton president around this time too?
Yes. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, the connections are there, and it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, wow. Well, we had to go there, though, huh? We have to see it through every possible angle because, like we said, it's probably still. I mean, it sounds like this pretty much like shut it down, like to the scale it was at. So it probably, like you said, is it still happening out there? Probably. To the level of this? Oh, hell no. There's no way.
No, they're just better at not getting caught doing it. Like we have the capability to 3D print organs and shit, and we can place them into the body after taking the actual organ out, which has the adrenochrome stored in it. I think that our technology has advanced so much to be able to. Now, this is a working theory that I have going on, right? I'm not saying officially that adrenochromes can be stored in organs. I think that they found a way to do it though. That's what I think this is all coming down to, is I think that now it's a lot easier for them because they don't, like I said, they don't have to have live children running around, and they don't have to maybe they scare the kids first, because the kids going into surgery, the kids going to the hospital, their adrenaline's already pumping, right? They hate the hospital.
I hate the hospital. But
if they kill them at the right time, their adrenaline can be stored in certain glands and certain organs that can be harvested directly after surgery, and they can use it at later times. It's like when Egypt discovered that they could salt dry meat and eat it later. It's the same exact thing.
Sure. Sure. I know somebody had made a request of like, oh, you guys should start doing your podcast on video. And I'm like, sure, because to see the faces I've been making at Nick through those explanations, I'm sure would add to the value of this show. But neither of us can afford good webcams right now. So
No, we can't. And also, you guys don't want to see us on video. I'm usually half clothed, like
Yep.
for podcast, because that's just how I'm most comfortable.
Oh yeah. No, I got really bad lighting in my room. It's a disaster piece, but yeah, well, we'll see.
But guys, that was it for the Alder Hay organ scandal. And I got to tell you, I feel kind of gross.
Yeah, no, it's what a journey this episode was. Like, and you know what? But I'm glad we did it. I think this is a good way to, really get into something that's really just brutal and nasty, and get our hands dirty a little bit, and it feels good. And you know what? I think it was a really, despite how fucking depressing and sad, this was a very interesting episode.
I think it brought to light a lot of issues. I don't think a lot of people knew about this, and I think it's important to know about this because it's probably still happening at some hospitals. So, if you take your kid into the hospital and something happens, always look into it. Always look into it.
That's the moral lesson here is even if it's death, get a fucking receipt, because you don't, if it's important to you, you should get a receipt for it and some sort of proof. And if they're refusing to give it to you, something is wrong and you should push for it.
Exactly. Or if there's a weird amount of whiteout on the reports you get.
Yeah. Though I did hear too, because, we did talk about how there was like, for the receptionist, there was like a whole lot of bullshit of like, mountains of calls about like people who are, complaining about like lost children parts and stuff like that. But, I did hear something about there was a weird harrowing report of one of them supposedly was not only very good at the job, but seemed to enjoy it a little too much. The suspicion that was actually Count Chocula in disguise infiltrating in, trying to get, a first front row seat to this whole ordeal.
I knew it. I fucking knew that he would be involved in this somehow, because if you say adrenochrome, he comes running.
Oh yeah. It's like flies to sugar. It's just, they jump on it. They'll do whatever it takes. I don't think from our sources, it sounds like he wasn't like, the one causing it, but he certainly was like ready to dip his hands in, because he was already heavily involved in the black market at this point. But, when you get greedy, you start to, you go to right to the factory, huh?
You always look for different avenues. Once you have some, you need more. And he saw this as a prime opportunity to get his hands on adrenochromes, to get his hands on an even strong cash flow. And this is just literally a blip in the map of shitty things that Count Chocula has done, but he was involved for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just because his involvement was low on this one doesn't mean it was low on everything he's ever done. But like we said, we're being thorough, and we find with a lot of these real world true crime-ish shit, our boy, he's right there,
always in the background, or he's either in the background or the foreground, but he's always there. And I think it's telling how, first off, I want to say this dude is immortal. Like, he's been around for centuries, apparently, because we've been doing research on the things that he's been doing. And now he's popping up in an organ scandal in the late 80s, early 90s. Immortal.
Yeah, there's just, it's starting to add together, and we're starting to piece together this long roadmap of shit of like, because immortality, longevity. The hope is that with it being immortal, that doesn't mean you can't be killed. There is a possibility to end this nightmare once and for all. But, like we said, by the time we release it, it'll probably be the last episode you ever hear. So that's why we got to make sure it's a stab right in the heart.
Exactly. And we're going to get to the bottom of this, guys. Trust me, we're going to do this right.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Well, thank you everybody for listening through with us in this very kind of newish formatted episode where we talk about real shit that actually happened. But glad to have you here. If you enjoyed your stay and you want to shoot us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes, that would be fantastic. Shoot some words of how you feel. Spotify, you can hit us with the follow button. We got new episodes every single Wednesday, and that will make sure that you are notified when they come out. Instagram is @CEOTPK. You can check us out on YouTube, Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. We got all of our full episodes for stream there. Twitter is at CEOTPK1. Our Facebook is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. Email us at ceotpk1@gmail.com. I could donate to us at ko/fi.com/CEOTPK if you feel the need. It's not necessary or essential. We'll get by just fine. Discord is discord.gg/lowercase b, number 6, capital C, capital T, number 5, capital M, capital X. All of these links, though, are on our Facebook. Do not feel the need to just keep on hitting that 10 seconds back button on Spotify to catch that Discord link.
Yeah, and look, first off, I want to say shout out one of our long-time listeners, Crystal. Thank you for subscribing on YouTube. One step closer. All right, we're one step closer. People, subscribe on YouTube. We more so me. I need to stream drunk on the weekends, and I'm going to continue plugging it at the very end of the plugs until we hit 1,000 subscribers, and then I can walk around my house with a scotch in hand on my phone and just stream to the masses. It's gonna be beautiful. You guys are gonna love it.
Give the people what they want, as some say, and if you guys want it, I guess we'll see.
We'll see how bad you want it. Subscribe.
Yes, please, much appreciated. But yep, thank you, everybody. This has been a journey. I feel like I need to take a bath after this.
Yeah, and look, everybody, whether you're offended by dead baby jokes or if you laughed a little too hard at them, just remember that the truth is out there.
Yep, I'd say ditto, except it's not.
Yeah, this is gonna be a sticky episode.
Sticky. What a fucking awful way to put it.